Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inspired Messenger Show. I am your host, Mark Porteous, and I believe that we all choose this life for a reason, and that aligning with your purpose is really the most exciting and rewarding adventure imaginable. This show is really designed to inspire, educate, and motivate you to recognize and to share your own divine gifts with the world. We share information, resources, and action steps that you can take now to improve your personal and professional life so you can better fulfill your mission. You can watch previous episodes and find other helpful resources to support you on your journey at theinspiredmessengersnetwork.com. I'm blessed to work with these amazing mentors and teachers who are aligned with my mission to empower what I call inspired messengers and soul-driven entrepreneurs with the tools and support that they need to thrive in their purpose of transforming lives. It's a great honor for me to introduce my mentors and colleagues to you so that we can all benefit from their wisdom and sharing. I really appreciate you sharing and liking our Facebook page. If you can do that, if this inspires you, we really appreciate it. You can catch the Inspired Messenger Show live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can watch our previous episodes at inspiredmessengersnetwork.com. In our upcoming episode, we're going to be speaking with fitness personality Angela Hubbs, who will be talking about the challenges and opportunities of creating a life and body you love in alignment with your mission. Today's topic is how to ditch indecision and overwhelm by using your intuition. And so for anybody who's been following me for the last few weeks, really for the last several months, my family's been dealing with some very serious health and wellness issues. And the hardest part has been deciding what steps to take, and just not wanting to make the wrong choices. And I'm betting that you can probably relate to that on some level with something in your life. Perhaps you're dealing with difficult challenges in your life right now and feeling overwhelmed, wondering what you should do. Well, imagine if you had unlimited direct access to clear guidance from your own trusted source. Think about that. Well, my guest today will share a fun and easy way to tap into your higher guidance. Rachel Archelaus, I apologize, is an internationally known spiritual teacher, artist, and business mentor. She founded the Intuitive Art Academy, where she teaches people the Archelaus method of intuitive art. This modality allows you to have a two-way conversation with your higher self, extending intuition from just a feeling to an entire language. Intuitive Art Have a Two-Way Conversation with Your Higher Self is Rachel's forthcoming book. She's also authored several coloring and activity books designed to connect people with their intuition. She is the co-host of the Soulfulpreneur Radio, which has hosted guests such as Sonia Choquette, Kyle Cease, Robert Scheinfeld, and Jim Self. She also interviewed me last month, and you can check out all those interviews at intuitiveart.com. Rachel is a nature enthusiast and loves hiking, solo camping, and is excited to try backpacking this year. Her photography can be seen on her blog posts and weekly videos. She also volunteers with Free Arts for Abused Children in Phoenix, Arizona. Hello, Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's really fun. It was just it feels like just a couple of weeks ago, but it might have been a month ago, I guess, that I was on your show, and it just was really nice. I just feel like we have a very natural connection. You're very calming energy, and I just feel really connected with you.
Thanks. Likewise. Yeah, it did feel like, oh, we're just friends. We've always been friends.
That's exactly how it feels. It's very interesting you said that. Yeah, it just feels like we've just always been friends, and it's a new relationship, but it just feels really good. I'm really excited about what you're doing. Years ago, I took a whole long program just on getting intuitive guidance, and I always felt like women were just more naturally intuitive, and that somehow I just didn't get it. What I realized was that I was receiving the messages, I just wasn't trusting them and following them. So the conversation today is something that is of particular interest to me, and I know a lot of people in our audience are also always looking for new ways to guide their intuition. And what you've got is really a very unique process for helping people connect and, like you said, even dialogue with their higher selves. And in fact, you're offering a free workshop to our viewers so they can learn this language of your higher self. But before we get into the process or start talking about that, do you mind telling me a little bit about how it came to you, how this whole process came to you, and why you founded the Intuitive Art Academy?
Sure. So it's a little bizarre, I have to warn you. It's a great story, though. When I was younger, I was just a creative, mess. I would paint on anything, I would use anything. And this one day, I was about 11 years old. I was just sitting on my floor of my bedroom, painting the top of this little cardboard box for my mom. It was going to be for her birthday present. I was going to put something inside of it. But it was just, the painting was just this little abstract. It was like a little cross with 4 different shades of orange on the outside corners. And I looked down at it and I was just kind of staring, daydreaming at it. And this thing popped into my head and it said, "Your mom is compartmentalizing her problems." And I was like, I didn't really know what that meant. And the voice wasn't mine. It felt very unfamiliar to me. Not scary, just like this information had appeared and I didn't know where it came from. So I went to my mother and I, totally ruined the surprise. And I said, does this make sense to you? When I was painting this, I heard this thing and it said that you're compartmentalizing your problems. And she got really white, and was like, oh, and really just explained to me that, yes, she's really been doing that. She'd had some trauma come up that she hadn't really dealt with. And she had issues with my dad that she hadn't really dealt with. And, she didn't go into the whole detail with me, but she really resonated with it to the point where I could tell that she was visibly kind of shaken. So at that point, I thought, well, this is really interesting. And since I wasn't going to stop, painting or drawing anyway, I just kept doing it and seeing if anything would come. And over the years, I really saw that there was a pattern, and that orange always meant it was something with the mind, thinking, strategy, mental color, and black always meant boundaries. Pink always meant a certain thing, white always meant the same thing. And so during my teens, I really experimented with this, and I would start to ask questions of whatever, my voice, that higher self, that whatever was speaking. And I started getting answers. And in my later teens, I really discovered, okay, this is my higher self. This is me. It's my wisdom that's coming through. It's my intuition. And because I have this color system, I know what it says. And I can have a dialogue. I can ask for clarity on something if I don't understand, or I can ask questions for other people even. I can ask about my internal emotional state or what's going to happen in my future, because that part of us is connected to everything. So, and then early in my 20s, I discovered I could teach this to anybody, and that everybody has this ability, and that everyone has their own color meanings that come from their subconscious and their higher self. And that's really what sparked the Intuitive Art Academy, was knowing that everybody can do this. It's not just for me, and it only takes about an hour to learn. So it's really accessible.
Yeah, and that's what I found very interesting about it. Like, I had watched your workshop and did it one time, and then was on your show without really having gone through it more, and did a drawing right before the show, and it was amazing how accurate it was. Like, I guess sometimes I try to overthink things, and that's probably what was happening before. But then I just started drawing, and the intuition was a little bit different for me. I didn't hear the voice. I just kind of understood what it meant.
Yeah, I don't hear the voice anymore either. I think that was just like my gateway into it. But yeah, it is amazing, right? How accurate it is for you, even though it's not something you do every day as a practice.
Right, and I can imagine that as a practice, you've got your licensed coaches that have all been through your program and certified to teach it. That it just becomes a part of your daily life. I imagine you must use this quite regularly.
Yeah, I do. And, it's for the reason that you mentioned in the beginning of the show about how we're all getting messages, except we're doubting them or we're not realizing that we're getting them. So it's so much easier to deal with your intuition when it's outside of you and it's not in your head. And so my whole room or my office is like littered with drawings and paintings that are answers to my questions just so I can see them and be reminded of them.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I really want to go into that doubt a little bit more, because that was something that was really plagued me, was not knowing. Why do you think that people seem to just doubt their intuition?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. One of them is that intuition is subtle. We have a lot going on in our minds. We have, eyes which take in billions of pieces of information a second, and our mind is trying to give us what we need from that. And so there's always something racing through our head. And then there's also worries and fears that we have in our, we have, oh, I need to be at my next appointment, or I have to pick up my child, or what am I going to make for dinner? And those are louder than our intuition. And so during the day when we're running around, we're receiving intuitive information, but we're not hearing it because there's other things that are turned up. So normally it's easier to listen, right before you fall asleep or when you're tired, because those other voices are lower. But also, it's just the simple thought that because there are so many things in our head, when our intuition comes in that little whisper of a voice, it just gets lumped in with all the other stuff. So we're not really giving it a lot of attention. We're so used to not really paying attention to our head and letting everything swirl around that when the little whisper comes in, we don't stop and, give it importance. We just let it swirl around. So, that's why a lot of times we'll get a subtle intuition and then it'll get a little louder and a little louder and a little louder. And sometimes it turns into us getting sick or really unhappy because we didn't listen when it first came in.
That's huge. I often refer to what I learned was Oprah's quote that sometimes you get a whisper and sometimes you get a two by four. Uh,
Yeah.
and it sucks to have to wait until the two by four comes there, because that really hurts. But I totally resonate with what you're talking about, with like just having other noise that's over it. Like if you're listening to the radio at a certain volume in your house, even just turning off the lights, all of a sudden it sounds like the volume is gone up, when really it's just that your hearing has increased. So how can you turn up the volume on your intuition?
Yeah. Well, that's funny because the reason I like solo camping so much is just going to camping by myself is because you get to hear so much more. Like the birds are now the loudest thing in your environment. And so I remember whenever I drive out of the camp after a week of being there, the radio is so jarring to me because there's so many sounds going on at once. But you don't have to go solo camping to turn up your intuition. There's the obvious one of meditation. That really helps because you're creating the quiet inside of you so that your intuition then can be the loudest thing. And you can pay attention to your breath for a couple minutes. I just literally sit down and let my mind wander. You can do that too. You don't have to have the clear mind. You can just allow yourself to relax and connect with your own bigger energy. Um, you can just have an intention of sitting in, once or twice a day and listening and say, okay, body, I'm ready to receive intuition right now. And just see if anything comes up. The big key is that you want to be in an open and receptive state. If you are feeling desperate or like, I need to hear my intuition right now, you're closing off that channel because you have to be open. You have to be relaxed. You have to feel like there's room for something to come in. And if you're having trouble with that, something really easy to do is pretend you're having a conversation with a real person. So if you were having a conversation, you would say something and you would feel, okay, there's something coming out of me. I'm pushing out right now. And then you'd wait for a reply. And then you feel the opening. And so you just want to make sure that you're feeling the opening, you're waiting for something to come in, and that's really what's going to help you out a lot.
There's a lot of beautiful things that you said there. Two of them that are kind of stuck in my mind. One was uh, the being able to sit in quiet and not have to have the clear mind. Because I know that with meditation, that's one of the challenges a lot of people have, is that, oh my gosh, how do I shut off my brain and just be silent? So shutting it off is basically telling that voice, I don't want to hear you right now. So that doesn't really help. And sometimes with all those voices, just letting them all talk, or whatever the noise is that's in your head, allows you to process it. So I really appreciate you giving us permission kind of to just let the mind wander and not have to try to shut it down. You also said that instead of trying to increase the volume of the voice or the intuition, it's more about increasing your ability to hear, to listen. And you talked about in a normal conversation, after you talk, then you sit and listen. And that for a lot of people, and I've been in this situation at times, where we like to broadcast, and it can be somewhat of a challenge to just stop talking. Now, there's that awkward silence. Even in a normal conversation, sometimes people can't sit in the awkward silence. So it sounds like that is a powerful part of your practice.
Yeah, once you observe your mind as it is, like we're saying, just sit down and see what's going on up there. Just observe. There's no need to judge or go into story, but anything that happens when you're doing that is fine. It becomes easier to be okay with the silence. We're often just afraid of hearing what's in our head because we're avoiding so many things and we have a lot to deal with. Like you and I both know, this year has been tough for a lot of people, me included. And sometimes we just don't want to deal with what's going on, and hence the distraction world that we live in of, social media and games and, Krispy Kreme, I don't know. So it can be really challenging to get quiet, especially if you're in the presence of somebody else. But it is really worthwhile, and you'll find that it's a lot easier to deal with things when you have the space in you to receive the intuitive information that will help get you through it.
And I think that's such an important piece of it. Like you said, a lot of people are literally afraid. It's like, you don't want to clean out your closet because you just don't want to get in there and see all the junk that's there. A lot of us have all of these things that we just don't want to face. And it becomes like a brain fog. How can people help to get out of that overwhelm? If you do have all these voices in there, what do you see as a way to kind of center yourself and clear out the fog?
Well, I think that something that really helps clear the fog and the overwhelm is doing something creative, because then you're giving a portal for that stuff to come out of you. I'm a really big fan of getting things out of your head because they don't really do us much good there anyway, right? They're just stewing around. Nothing really gets decided when you have the loop in your head, and things just get really mucky. So whether you do intuitive art, which is a really good way to channel all of that stuff and get clarity on it, or not, you could just grab a coloring book, or, do stream of consciousness writing or journaling. Or if you are a more physical person, something that I love to do is throw rocks. If you live near the beach, go throw rocks in the water, go throw rocks in a pond. There's something so satisfying about being in the elements. And if you have some aggression you need to get out, or anger, I mean, who doesn't have some suppressed anger? I think spiritual people harbor that. I like to get a wiffle ball bat and literally beat up my guest bed, because it doesn't hurt anyone. It's really fun. It gives you a little workout, but it also helps to process that stuff and just get it moving.
I love that, because both of those, all of these answers are really about being in your body. And I like the idea about getting it out of your head, that it doesn't do any good in there. Being able to process it, whether it's writing on paper or creating art. But the idea about moving your body, throwing stones and taking that wiffle ball bat to the bed is so physical. It gets your body into it. And we are a whole being that sometimes gets compartmentalized. And and what you said about the anger thing, that spiritual people seem to harbor their anger. We feel guilty about expressing it, like, oh, this is a bad feeling, so let me just keep it inside us. That's a really important point.
Yeah, and I know we're a pretty woo-woo crowd here, but you may even have anger you need to process from other lifetimes. I know that that's the case for me. Often when I find I do have anger to release, I'll go and do the wiffle ball bat thing, and then I'll realize, well, this is coming from somewhere, not even from this life. It's just bubbling up from other places. So just don't judge anything. Like, anything you're feeling is fine. Anything you're thinking is fine. It may not even be yours. Just, find a way to process it and put it in a place where it's at least helpful to you or outside of you.
Oh, that was the next thing I was going to bring up, was the judgment thing, about how we judge what's in our heads, and judging the anger and feeling bad about that. And a lot of times we don't know where the feelings are even coming from in the first place. So just being able to express it is important. And it's hard enough with all the exterior judgment that goes on in the world, that the idea about judging ourselves for what we may not even have any control over is really not benefiting or serving us in any way.
Yeah. If you think about people as receivers, right? We're receivers of inspiration and our own intuition, but we're also receivers of what's being broadcasted outside of us. So other people's thoughts, other people's opinions, and whatever they're feeling, also of society. So we're receiving all of these things of like, oh, we should be this way, or we should look like that, or we should do this in our business. And especially when you're trying to get sensitized to your intuition, you're going to become more aware of how much you're receiving from other people. And so if you have thoughts in your head, they may not even be from you, right? The stuff that gets swirled around, you're just like picking and pulling from those around you and what you're hearing on a regular basis. So it's important not to judge, because it's not even yours. So basically, when you see that it's in you, this is just like observing your thoughts in the meditation. Notice it, right? Say, okay, well, that's weird. I don't know if I really am on board with that. And so I've observed you, now you can go. Like, you don't need to pay it any more attention. And by the way, observing it keeps it from just turning around. If you're in that mental fog, you may be in the mental fog because you're just believing what everyone else is telling you, right? So it may not even apply to you.
Yeah, it's so funny because, again, we are a bit of a woo-woo crowd here, and a lot of times we think differently, and we protect ourselves in the way that we express ourselves, and the idea about our decisions really impact us. Like, we have control over our lives, and we want to take responsibility for it, and sometimes we take too much responsibility with things like making decisions. The biggest challenge right now in our life, for my wife and I, is knowing that the decisions that we're making are really the best in our highest good, and the best for our children. And so it puts a lot of pressure to make the right decision. Why do you think that it's so hard for people to make decisions in the first place? And what can we do to make that a little easier?
Yeah, well, I grew up being pretty bad at making decisions. It always really freaked me out. And one of those reasons is because I see that there are infinite possibilities, right? Like, why limit myself to one thing when if I don't make a decision, I have the possibility of doing 1,000 things. So that's one reason why, especially sensitive and intuitive people are pretty bad at making decisions, because we feel the possibility and we feel like it's so limiting to then make a decision and pick one path. So that's one reason, and it's not a bad reason. It's fun to play in possibility land. The other thing is, obviously, we're afraid that it will pick the wrong way. But if you think about it on the higher level, there is no wrong way. And also, decisions aren't usually as big as they seem. So even if you make one decision, if you take a step forward, there's usually some time where you get to feel around in it and see, is this still what I choose? So you get to decide in every moment, is this still aligned with me or is it not? And we let the paralysis often freak us out into giving over too much power, right? Like, we have the power to change our mind in any moment. Now, obviously, in the case of like what I'm dealing with my dad, he's picking, does he want radiation? Does he want surgery? Those are big deals. But again, he still would have time leading up to the actual procedure of whether he wants to do that or not. And on the highest level, everything is always perfect, right? So regardless of the outcome, if you do what you feel is in alignment with you, meaning it feels the most calm for you, it feels the most centered, it feels like it makes sense, you would say like, okay, deep down, I know this is the right way to go. That's like some good terminology for if it's in alignment for you. No matter what happens on the other side, it's perfect. You know, we're all spirits right now having this kind of physical experience, and we don't actually die. We exist after this lifetime. And of course, you know, it's a lot more complicated than that. And that, you know, we have people around us we love and we have a life we love. Nobody wants to leave. But on the highest sense, everything is always perfect. So you can't make the wrong decision.
That is so beautiful. And I think that summarized what was coming to me as you were talking about this, that for me, I think one of the reasons that I doubted my decisions and was so worried about them was because I was attached to the outcome. It wasn't about the decision. It was like, which decision will get me to this result? And we don't really have control over that result. We can make the decision, and just the decision, it's really for me that attachment to a specific outcome that gets me so concerned. And when I was doing the art with you, I was even concerned about, oh my goodness, what if I don't get the right answer, or what if I do it wrong? What if I draw the wrong picture? And it was nice to see how just natural and flowing it was. But even in that process, like I just, as a man, I don't know, I guess women probably do the same thing. We just question our intuition. For a long time, I didn't know if the voice was coming from my head or from my heart or from what I thought other people thought I should have. How do you help people to just be able to trust that intuition?
Well, the first thing I tell people with that is intuition is your first voice. So if you ask yourself a question, the first thing that comes to you is your intuition. Then your head will chime in with whatever nonsense or advice it has, or the fear will come or whatever. So your first instinct, the first thing you feel or hear is your intuition. Because think about it, like you're talking to another part of yourself. You're asking yourself the question really just on a different level. You don't have to finish the question for that part of you to know what you're asking, right? Like it's instantaneous. So your answer will often come before you're even done asking the question. It's just that quick. It's very subtle again, right? So it may just be a tiny shift in feeling or a tiny feeling of an answer, but that's definitely your intuition. So try to pick up on that one before the other voice, because the second, third, fifth voice is going to be your conditioning, what you think other people will think, you know, what you've done in the past. Your mind has a lot of advice. So there's that. But also the way to really turn up the volume and to make your intuition more interactive with you and, you know, more reliable for you is just to follow through. Because when you start following through with the advice, you'll see, oh, this is stellar. Like, this is amazing. Things are working out really well when I follow my intuition. And so then you're more likely to look for it because it will make logical sense at that point. Before you follow your intuition, it normally never makes logical sense. So you have to build up that muscle, really, of listening and having it go well, or, you know, listening and not doing it and then having that go well.
I'm so glad that you said that, because that's definitely one of the things that I have found, that one, it does turn up the volume. I start hearing more. It's almost like my higher self gets mad at me when I don't listen. It's like, well, if you're not going to listen anyway, I'm not even going to tell you. Why have I give you advice if you're not going to listen to it? And when I started hearing it and trusting it and then taking action on it, I started to notice more and more of the voice showing up, or just the hearing that first response, and always holding on to that, even with all the other voices coming in afterwards. But it's certainly the taking action. It's so easy to get stuck in inaction, but that when we actually follow our advice, and like you said, then all of a sudden you say, oh my gosh, I would have never expected this result from that, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And that goes again to, like, there's a million ways to do everything, especially now that we have the internet. We can Google how to write a blog post, and there are 10,000 articles telling you slightly different ways to write a blog post. But if you just ask your intuition, okay, what is the most beneficial way for me to write a blog post? You'll, you know, feel your way to the perfect answer, or you'll feel your way to the perfect, you know, article to tell you what's in alignment for you. And that's going to be best for you. And if you start to really live your life like that, letting your intuition be your guide, you're going to have a lot more time on your hands, because you're not going to be constantly fighting with yourself over which way to go. I know for me, you know, like I said, I get lost in possibilities pretty easily. And when I fail to ask my intuition for a little pointer or a guidepost, I get lost in my head. So, yeah.
No, that's really great. So I mentioned earlier about your free workshop. Can you tell us a little bit about what's involved in that? And for anybody who's watching this on Facebook Live, right below the video here, you can see download your gift. And do you want to give out the URL and then explain exactly what the workshop's all about?
So it is a free intuitive art workshop for beginners. So you don't have to have any intuitive experience, no art experience. You're going to be scribbling with your eyes closed, so you don't have to worry about what it looks like at the end. But it basically just hooks you up with your higher self, you know, the voice of your intuition, so that you can start getting really quick, reliable information without having to sort through your busy mind. So it's just 3 steps. You're going to ask a question, you're going to make your drawing, and then you're going to decode it. And we give you the little meditation where you'll get your own color meanings, so that you've then got your language of how to talk to your higher self. So the workshop's under an hour. It doesn't take long to learn. And then you'll even be invited to our Facebook group, where if you have trouble decoding it, I'll make a little video for you with what I feel is going on, and you can get to know all the other intuitive artists in there, and it's a pretty fun place.
I like that you acknowledge that it's customized, that different colors mean things to different people, because we both speak English, and yet we could use the same word and interpret it differently. So the same thing with the colors, that you help people to understand what those colors mean to them, and you help them to interpret it for themselves. So it's not like you're doing an ink blot where they're looking at somebody else's painting trying to interpret it, or you're not looking at somebody else taking your art and telling you what it means. It's you doing the art, you asking the question even. That's an important part of it, is what guidance are you looking for? And you really do a great job of walking everybody through the whole process and making it very simple yet quite profound.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. You know, and I studied psychology in college, and I found it really interesting that we have so much information stored in our subconscious, and the color meanings that we find, you know, in that meditation, they mean a lot. So we could even do, you know, 10-hour masterclass on what your colors mean because of what they are, but we don't get into that. We make it really simple. But I just think it's fascinating how complex we are as people, you know?
Absolutely. And I know, like you said, that anybody who downloads the gift and goes through the program will be invited to the Facebook page so they can have more personalized input from you. I would also love to hear anybody who's listening to hear more about what you would like to know more about intuitive art, because I would like to put together a webinar with you, Rachel, and figure out what the best way for me to serve our audience with your wisdom. So if anybody is coming up with anything, if anything's intuitively popping up for you, if you want to hear more about colors or shapes or whatever it is, or just how to tune in, whatever that might be, I'd love to hear that from you. The time has just flown by. I can't believe it's already been 36 minutes. Is there any last words or anything that you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
I just think everybody is an amazing being, and we all have access to our higher selves. We are our higher selves. There's really no separation there. So I'm just excited to help people connect with that bigger part, because it does make life so much easier and so much more fun. So thank you so much for having me on. I can't believe the time went by so fast too. I had no idea. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And it's really nice. It was nice being a guest on your show where you don't have to watch time and you can just be in the moment. We've covered a lot here and we could literally go on for hours, but I do want to be conscious of your time, and I really appreciate you for being here. One of the things you just said is really important. I want to underscore it about your higher self, because a lot of times we talk about higher self as if it's something above you or outside of you, and to remind us that we are one with our higher selves, that reminds us of our own divinity. And I think that's so important and something that a lot of people really need to hear. So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
And I also want to thank you, everyone here watching, whether you're watching us live or watching the replay. The fact that you're giving yourself this time and watching this video on intuitive art, whether you're questioning your intuition or wanting more of it, the fact that you're investing this time in yourself is a great gift, and I really appreciate you giving that to yourself. I do believe that we all have a special message, including you. And if you're inspired to share your message, we're here to support you. So please check out the inspiredmentorsnetwork.com, where you can access valuable resources and other videos in our archives. And of course, please like us on Facebook, facebook.com/inspiredmessengers. Most of all, I just wanted to say that we would really love to read and respond to your thoughts and your comments. We're here for you. So share your feelings or questions, anything that comes up for you. You can also email us at theteam, THETEAM, @inspiredmentorsnetwork.com. And remember that you are a brilliant light in the world. So keep shining brightly. Namaste.